Welcome to the show. Brand new week coming into the Man Cave. Lots to get to. Next couple of days are all about Donald Trump and the greatest Prime Minister of all time, I think I have to say that by law now, actually meeting in the White House. They've got a lot of differences, but somehow I think it's all going to end in cuddles. We'll preview that very shortly. Big money behind the Teals. Now, of course, we have to get money out of politics, unless, of course, it's been given to the left-wing cause, that is, those who seek to maintain dignity in our parliament. So much better than the rest of us, aren't they? And our dear friend Dave Rubin, back in Australia and in the Man Cave. We had a spectacular chat this arvo. I will show you some of it. It'll all be up soon at skynews.com.au. Good man, Dave Rubin, by the way, travelling around the country, and you can get tickets to see him live. Sydney, Brisbane, still to come. I don't know, plenty of people loved seeing him in Melbourne. Tonight we will talk about the No Kings protest that includes quite a few loons.
Can I get this thing up in your inflatable nose a little bit more so you can explain your problems to me? It's complete. All of it is insane.
Yeah, MSNBC today talking to inflatable unicorns because they're against Donald Trump. We'll get to all of that very shortly. But first, finally, Melbourne has had enough. The wonderful, beautiful, spectacular city of Melbourne has now had enough. And it's had enough of not all protesters, but a particular type of protester. The type of far left, over the top, egging on for a fight protesters. Not the March for Australia people, who, yes, we're out and about again across the country today. But there was violence on the streets of Melbourne. And the reason I say Melbourne has finally had enough, and we now know it, is somebody with a badge, somebody with authority, is not trying to pretend that there's some sort of equal sides here. There are people who have held the city to ransom for long enough and now are turning a particular type of violent that means Melbourne is at a crossroads. This was the police a bit earlier tonight.
This is what was thrown at police today, and I think Melbourne has had a gutful. I look on the social media streaming platforms of some of these issue-motivated groups that are saying police used excessive force. The fact was, these were being thrown at police. Bottles filled with shards of glass were being thrown at the police. Rotten fruit was being thrown at police. Bins were put on fire. Flags were on fire. And I think, really, enough's enough.
Yeah, bloody oath. This show is pro-cop. Always has been, always will be. Because the men and women of the police force in Victoria and every other state and jurisdiction around the country run towards trouble when everyone else runs away. They are not paid a football player's salary. They are paid pretty poorly compared to those who we do overly celebrate in our culture, but we could all frankly do without. But we can't do without the cops. And the idea that your right to protest, and there is a right to protest, and there is a right to say what you want, including despicable things, it ends when it starts to hurt innocent people. And when the target are the police, they are not punching bags. It is a disgrace what took place today. It is a disgrace that these people will slither back under the very rocks that they have left, the ones they didn't throw at the police, to celebrate what they did today. Now, they couldn't give a tuppence about what you and I think, but I tell you what, now that the police are drawing a line, maybe they're going to really see what it's like to go up against good, decent people doing their job. Now, they will let them march through the streets and chant what they want, but they will not tolerate the violence. Violence that has seen police officers go to hospital and are watching this broadcast from a hospital ward tonight.
We had police injured. I have a sergeant, a female sergeant, who went to hospital with a suspected broken hand because she was kicked at. I have a member with a nasty gash on his leg from Corio.
This is a disgrace. It is not acceptable. It is not acceptable for the Premier to sit in silence or to half-ass admonishing these people by putting out a paper statement or banging one out on Twitter. On the behalf of the decent people of Melbourne, left, right and centre, there must be a full court press to punish these people. If you have any footage whatsoever of moments that could help police investigate this, please send them to Victoria Police. To my colleagues in the media, focus on who those people are. I want to see faces, I want to see names, I want to see charges. And then, of course, it's the courts who will inevitably take the piss weak option as opposed to saying that certain behaviours are just not acceptable. Now, today, they were not under the cover of international affairs. They were not hiding behind some sanctimonious cause to believe they are better than anyone else. They were there to start trouble. The March for Australia rallies, second time around, were peaceful events in other states. The reason it wasn't in Victoria was nothing to do with the people carrying the Australian flags. It was the people who consider themselves to be the moral better, the counter-protester, who decided to ignore the rules, to punch on and to pick up rocks and lob them at the police. Let's see in the next 24 hours who comes out and who really supports the police. Who will hide behind the right to protest? Who will hide behind some pretending that cracking down on people who assault police is somehow a crackdown on free speech? Let's see. By this time tomorrow night, we'll show you who's got a set of stones and who is unfit for leadership in one of the great cities of the greatest country of them all. Shame on everyone involved, but again, they will get off on how annoyed you are and how annoyed I am. They will get off on how annoyed the police are. But the difference between you and I being annoyed and the police being annoyed is that next time these people turn up, they are going to get a very different wall of blue than the one that has tolerated them disrupting weekend after weekend after weekend after weekend, month after month and year after year. This is not about equivalency between one side of politics and the other. This is not about politics. This is about people who want to go after the people who we need in an emergency. They have crossed a line. Let us see what the response will be. The first actions, again, will be to hear from our nation's leaders. Let us see who has the courage to speak and speak directly. The one with the backbone to say this is not on. Not now, not ever, and not on their watch. As for the courts, again, I have little faith. But let's make sure that some people are identified via the technologies that we all have in CCTV, television footage or mobile phone cameras, and let's get these people in front of a court. But there is a farce that is playing out. They've taken the piss for too long, and it is time to stop them in their tracks. Police went out of their way today to make it very clear to all those that will spend tomorrow trying to downplay and whataboutism, and they're all the same, the groups that were on the streets of Melbourne. The March for Australia people were complimented directly by police today. In Queensland, there was a much more peaceful gathering of thousands of people in central Brisbane, where many decided to have their voice on many a different issue, from everything from mass immigration to the many different micro issues, all of which important enough for them to take to the streets. And they are supported by some of the most famous politicians in the country, including Bob Katter in Brisbane today.
There's no jobs. All of the factories and production units have all closed down and gone overseas, right? So what the hell are they doing there?
Now, again, these people who took to the streets today, they seem to have learnt a lesson, at least organisationally, from a few weeks ago, which is why I didn't say much in the lead up to it. And I praise them for the way they conducted themselves today. The media, of course, goes looking for people saying wild and crazy things, but this is the sort of stuff that people were actually saying at those rallies.
We don't have enough housing at the moment for the people we've got here, and we're letting them in by the thousands.
And there was an attempt by the Home Affairs Minister today to try to pretend that anyone who is discussing the complexities of migration is, of course, a racist. This sort of childishness is rewarded by much of the establishment in this country, who fail to see the reality of the point that needs to be made. Australia's population 30 years ago was 18 million people. It is now 28 million people. In 30 years' time, the predictions are that we will have well and truly broken through 40 million people. No government anywhere in the country has been able to keep up with the number of people coming into the country because the queues at a hospital are longer than ever before. The queues for a rental property are longer than ever before. The competition to purchase a home anywhere near the one you grew up in is longer than it has ever been before. And the reality is that part, not all, of those areas are impacted by the Ponzi scheme that is dumping thousands and thousands and thousands of people into the system simply to grow the tax base. In the same way, there is the madness in our system when it comes to, say, things like cigarettes, where the states are in charge of a health system, but it is the federal government who decides to say that tobacco is legal and they make billions of dollars on it, while the states spend billions of dollars on people who end up in hospital. You end up in these bizarre scenarios where, because one person's budget is boosted, another person's budget has a giant hole in it. This was Tony Burke playing a home game on the ABC this morning.
People used to talk about being able to engage in dog whistle politics, and you give a message and only certain people would really hear what you were saying. It's not a dog whistle anymore. It's, it's a set of bagpipes coming over the hill.
See, that's garbage. You know it and I know it. How many times have we been talking about this issue over how many years, and how many times have I said almost every time what the concern is? The concern is not cultural. The concern is not religious. The concern is not from whence people come. The concern is about whether the infrastructure that we currently have can grow as fast as the federal government is growing the population of this country. That's the reality. Now, Tony Burke never wants to engage with that because it's just too easy to pretend that, despite the fact that every time we've talked about it, we have mentioned the asterisk, every time we talk about it, we mention the footnote, every time we talk about it, we go out of our way to be very clear about what matters and why it matters to us. Yet cowardly figures like this bloke, who, remember, thinks he's on the inside track to being the next Prime Minister when the current one eventually decides to move on. This bloke is a man who takes great pride in telling us the types of people that he does not want in the country, but takes also great pride in saying that we cannot have a debate about the number of people, not even type, which again I say is not the issue, but the number of people coming into the country and the issues that it has with infrastructure. It's a disgrace. It truly is. And it is one that they know is a lie, and their version of the dog whistle is to pretend that in this case, the bagpipes are really an electric guitar. They're trying to pretend that your concern is completely different than what it actually is. Well, we will continue to discuss it. We will continue to amplify it. We will continue to offer you the opportunity to share videos like the broadcast you may well be watching live right now on television. You do so at skynews.com.au. Now, you may remember a couple of years ago when the collective heads of the media exploded because the Prime Minister decided to go on holiday. Yeah, we remember. We remember the fight, we remember the garbage, and we remember the then opposition leader pretending this was the single worst moment in Australian history.
I want to talk about the needs of firefighters, not about Scott Morrison's holiday.
Now, this Prime Minister is Airbus Albo because he has spent an awful lot of time outside of the country rather than actually being in the country and governing it. But this has been electorally popular. his way, or the highway, is often one that is certainly echoed by much of the media because it helps attack those who wish to question his way of running the country. Now, last week the Prime Minister went on holidays. I don't care. He deserves a right to a holiday, just like every other working Australian and non-working Australian. You did not see me even mention that he was on holidays last week. And yes, I did notice that a story quickly popped up and popped down, but that's the only photo you got, as he apparently went somewhere for a week. But the bit that I am going to blow up about tonight is a report on news.com.au who, yes, 1 week ago told us that the Prime Minister had gone on holidays. It reads as follows. The location can now be revealed after the Prime Minister requested a 7-day news blackout for security reasons. What? Why did anyone agree to that? A 7-day news blackout. Now, again, I don't care that he goes on holidays. He can go on holidays wherever he wants. He deserves to be safe wherever he walks. But what rubbish. They had the meat hooks into Morrison when he was in Hawaii, but it's hands off when it comes to Albanese. The same website can reveal the Prime Minister has spent the week relaxing in a remote island in Micronesia. He had a security team and he had his fiancée. Now, this, of course, is the same security team that he would travel around Australia with. What on God's earth is the security risk to the Prime Minister's location for his holiday being known? Now, again, he is surrounded by a security bubble, as he should be, regardless of whether he wants to holiday in Lithgow or Las Vegas. Why did the media decide to give the Prime Minister's office what it wants, which is a shush? Let's all agree to shush. No such mercy for the politicians they don't like. But this is the perfect example of the system not rocking the boat. The bloke who they just waved through in his first term, barely gave him a tough question in his re-election, and now play like this to avoid the anger of the Prime Minister's office. What a joke. What a joke. I cannot believe. But again, does it surprise you? There's always one rule for them, isn't there? And one rule for those they disagree with. Fair dinkum. And now to the official business of the Prime Minister, where we can use the term Airbus Albo because this time, yet again, we are paying for it. Now, the Prime Minister is on his way to Washington, where he will meet with President Donald Trump. Now, I have every expectation, and anyone paying attention knows I've been saying this for months, that I hope it goes well. I don't like this Prime Minister. I wouldn't vote for this Prime Minister. I would love to see this Prime Minister replaced. But when any Prime Minister goes and meets with the President of the United States, I want the meeting to go well. You see, that's the difference between us and those of the far left. That the far left wish political trouble and international embarrassment for the people that they don't like. But there are plenty of people who do have a little bit of an expectation that this meeting could somehow end up blowing up, that this meeting somehow will end up like the meeting between the Ukrainian president and President Trump a little earlier this year, when everything from what he was wearing to what he was saying to how he wasn't listening became an international incident.
Playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
And even though our Prime Minister says this about net zero and its importance to the important issue of climate change, as he puts it,
if you get rid of net zero, you are saying climate change is not real.
And Donald Trump is the exact opposite.
We have to do something. Then they said global warming will kill the world, but then it started getting cooler, so now they could just call it climate change, because that way they can't miss. It's climate change. Because if it goes higher or lower, whatever the hell happens, there's climate change. It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion.
While this Prime Minister sucks up to China.
Even had a bit of a debate about wine and the quality, and he certainly agreed that Australian wine is good. He spoke about the Tasmanian devils as being cute animals in Australia. They're probably not as cute as pandas.
The President of the United States sees the CCP, not the Chinese people, the CCP for the global threat that it is.
For years, we were taken advantage of by China very badly. We were losing hundreds of billions of dollars a year to China. We really built their military, if you think about it. The kind of money that presidents allowed to be lost to China was just insane. And then when I came into office, as you know, I put very severe tariffs. So we took in hundreds of billions of dollars in my first term from China.
While our Prime Minister says this.
What is a woman, Prime Minister?
An adult female.
How difficult was that to answer?
Not too hard.
The American president is a little more definite on such issues.
Well, it's sort of easy to answer for me because a woman is somebody that can have a baby under certain circumstances.
And our Prime Minister was all over the shop in recent issues in the Middle East.
Israel's denial of aid and the killing of civilians, including children seeking access to water and food, cannot be defended, nor can it be ignored. Yeah. We have called upon Israel to comply immediately.
Which would mean that he disagrees with Donald Trump.
Israel, with our help, has won all that they can by force of arms. You've won. I mean, you've won. Now it's time to translate these victories against terrorists on the battlefield into the ultimate prize of peace and prosperity for the entire Middle East. It's about time you were able to enjoy the fruits of your labour.
And even though this Prime Minister will sit down in the Oval Office, shake hands, warm embrace with a politician who he weaponised to try to, and successfully, win his own re-election in this country.
You don't have to adopt all of America's policies.
Here's the reality. There will be no blow-up. There will be no Zelensky moment. Do not hope for it. Do not imagine it. Do not expect it. Because there are politicians that are like Anthony Albanese, who Donald Trump sits down with and is very warm with, despite the fact that they are just as polar opposite as our Prime Minister is on the issues that apparently matter in the United States versus the way issues are played out here. The Canadian Prime Minister is effectively their version, again, of a left-wing leader. Donald Trump could have said nothing about Canadian politics. Instead, he got involved pretending the 51st state. And again, their version of the Labor Party got re-elected despite not deserving it because the other guys were too close to Trump. Then there's Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, who we know would agree on very little with this president. But they've found a way to get along. So my bold prediction for the week ahead is that this will be a very successful meeting because there will be no blow-up, because there will be some sort of an agreement, there will be some sort of a trade, a transaction, a signing, something. But also at the end of the day, because the president deals with the person who is directly in front of him. It's not about whether he has heard or hasn't heard, about whether he likes them or dislikes them. And the reality is that the professionals that represent our country, regardless of whether we like them or not, will not go into attempt to displease the president. So the Team Australia moment here is, I hope that the meeting goes well. It'd be nice if they could agree on some more fundamental things than whatever it is that they will paper over in the next couple of days. It would be great to see some of the moral clarity of Trump exist in our leadership, but we had a chance for that. And Australia, as we know, is a very different place than the United States. So I wish the Prime Minister, of whom I do not support, of whom I did not vote for, of whom I hope does not rule for the rest of our natural lives, nothing but the best, because he represents the best country in the world. Now, you may well have heard a little bit of news regarding domestic politics this weekend.
Barnaby Joyce has declared he won't recontest his New South Wales seat and is now being publicly lobbied to join forces with another controversial politician, Pauline Hanson.
After confirming he won't stand for his seat of New England at the next election. While he's stopped short of quitting the party for now, Mr Joyce says his relationship with the current leadership has broken down.
The former Deputy PM let rip on his party yesterday. He says his differences with the Nationals leadership are irreconcilable.
Okay, everyone calm down, all right? Now, yes, we have seen the letter, which was first reported by Andrew Clennell, that was internally circulated to the members of the National Party in the New England seat.
My relationship with the leadership of the Nationals in Canberra has unfortunately, like a sadness in some marriages, irreparably broken down. The instructions that during the federal election I was not to campaign outside New England, as that didn't represent the views of the Nationals, then after the election being moved on for, quote, generational change, unquote, and just the atmospherics in the party room where I'm seated on the far corner of the coalition in the chamber means I'm seen and now turning into a discordant note. That's not who I want to be. I'm free to now consider all options as to what I do next.
So given his stance, particularly when it comes to net zero, the option apparently is at some point to maybe run for One Nation. Now, that would be unlikely to happen in the lower house. After all, he's been re-elected multiple times in the seat of New England. So logically, people are jumping to the idea that he would end up running for the New South Wales Senate seat. A New South Wales Senate seat that just recently had somebody elected who had to pull back because of health reasons, and somebody else has already been put into that seat. So if there was some grand plan happening in the next couple of days, well, that would have been the moment to move and put him into the One Nation Senate seat for the next 6 years. So the reality is that, look, something might happen down the track. There is nothing that is about to happen in the next couple of days. Yet the media is all very excited, including an interesting piece here, which is the suggestion from my mate Phil Curry, that all of this is about succession planning for Pauline Hanson, that one day Barnaby Joyce takes over. Well, my sources are immaculate on this issue, impeccable, I should say. Pretty obvious that the succession planning is, at some point in time, hopefully Lee Hanson will be elected to the Senate from Tasmania. She would then have a few years in the Senate before, yes, maybe she could become the leader. Obviously, talented people like James Ashby, who has helped rebuild and build One Nation to what it is. That's the options. But let's also deal with the reality here that Pauline Hanson has been fighting the fight for One Nation for decades and has, of course, been part of the Senate since 2016. The One Nation vote is higher than it has ever been. Currently in the polls under the last election, she was able to get 3 people elected to the Senate who were not named Hanson. Malcolm Roberts in Queensland, also senators in New South Wales and in Western Australia. She's up in 3 years' time, and you don't think she wants to be there for what could be the crowning moment of more MPs than ever before, more senators joining her on a crossbench that may well be able to create a big enough handbrake should the Albanese government be re-elected in 3 years? Come on. Pauline Hanson is a powerhouse. She is not planning to hand over the reins of that power anytime soon. I know that obviously she says to all and sundry in and around her that she doesn't want to become Joe Biden, and plenty of people have promised, including me, to tell her if she ever did. But till then, she's the leader, and she will be the leader for a very long time. And just finally, the No Kings protest, right? This is when, again, million people apparently around the United States, they decided to take to the streets and, wave their hands and how terrible is Donald Trump. Cool, rightio. Many of them are passionate.
So scared and upset, and I don't understand why people did and voted for this.
Now, I laugh at the other ones. That poor lady there, she's just so worked up by the garbage that gets fed to her all the time. But somebody I will laugh at is MSNBC, because they decided when interviewing people at the protest today that this is who they should shove a microphone in front of.
No, I'm not a radical. I'm just here to promote democracy and no kings.
We're here peacefully protesting, looking as ridiculous as we can, just so maybe we appeal to the president, because he is a ridiculous leader that is normalizing abuse of power.
Yeah, it's Trump's fault you drew dressed up as a unicorn, you lunatic. If you want to be on brand, by the way, go for the Labubu. Promise the girls I'd point it out on the show.